My father raised his glass and said, "We only raised one smart kid." And everyone laughed. Even my mother, even Celeste. And Noah? He bowed like he was royalty. I sat there, frozen, drowning in tartar and tart smiles, while 20 years of work dissolved in 12 words. Then he added, "Thank God for Noah," and the room erupted again. That was the moment I knew. I smiled. I stood. I excused myself. No one stopped me. No one noticed. But outside, someone did. "Dr. Greer?" Harvard had already called me professor. And I hadn't even begun. But before we begin, let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. My name is Allison Greer, and I'm 34 years old. From my third-floor Cambridge apartment, I grade papers while Newton, my ginger cat, purrs on my economics textbooks. My parents, Deborah and Richard Greer, still live in California, where they worship my younger brother Noah's every move. Their group emails blast his latest YouTube success stories, but can't seem to remember my department at Harvard. Even now, a week before his MBA graduation banquet, Mom's text reads, "Hope the family star can count on his sister showing up." My fingers tightened around my phone as I read it, but beneath my desk drawer lay the acceptance letter for my groundbreaking economic theory publication, my quiet triumph they'd never bothered to notice. But let me start from the beginning. The restaurant's valet stand glittered with Lexuses and BMWs when I arrived at Vertigo, Chicago's newest rooftop hotspot. You know the type. All glass walls and crystal chandeliers, where even the bread plates probably cost more than my monthly coffee budget. Noah had texted the dress code 3 times. "Black tie optional, but make it count." I smoothed my navy silk dress, classic, understated, and probably the only thing in my closet that would pass his fiancée's Instagram aesthetic. "Allison, you made it!" Mom's voice carried across the marble foyer, but her eyes were already sliding past me toward the door, probably watching for Noah's arrival. Dad stood nearby, phone in hand, barely offering a nod. "The Golden Boy's running late," he announced to no one in particular. "Celeste is doing a quick live stream about the evening." I remember when we were kids, how Noah would practice his signature for future autographs while I worked on calculus proofs. The memory stung like cheap perfume, sharp and artificial. Have you ever noticed how some wounds don't heal so much as they just get more familiar? The maitre d' led us to a private dining room with panoramic views of the city. Crystal stems caught the sunset, throwing light patterns across white tablecloths. I claimed a seat near the corner, away from the center stage that would inevitably become Noah's spotlight. Right on cue, my brother burst in 15 minutes later, Celeste Raymond on his arm like a designer accessory. Her platinum blonde hair caught the light perfectly, no doubt practiced for maximum photo impact. "Sorry we're late! Quick brand engagement emergency!" Noah announced it like he was sharing state secrets. Mom practically levitated from her chair. "Oh, honey, you both look amazing." "Celeste, that ring is even more gorgeous in person." I sipped my wine and watched the show unfold. Noah dominated every conversation, his MBA stories getting louder with each round of drinks. And then my professor said I had the most innovative approach he'd seen in years. He gestured broadly, nearly knocking over a water glass. "That's why Thompson Tech created a position just for me. 6 figures right out of the gate," Dad bragged to anyone in earshot. "That's my boy," Celeste chimed in with perfectly timed giggles, her phone never far from hand. "We're thinking about doing a whole series on young power couples in finance," she gushed. "Noah's following is just exploding." The waiter topped off my wine glass. I caught his sympathetic glance, the kind reserved for wallflowers at their own family functions. The evening blur of courses arrived. Tartare, risotto, some foam-topped thing I couldn't identify. I pushed them around my plate, nodding at appropriate intervals while constructing mental proofs about wealth distribution and social capital. Then Dad stood up, crystal glass in hand. The room hushed. "I want to propose a toast to my son, the next big name in financial technology." His voice boomed across the room. "You know, folks sometimes ask me about having 2 kids in academics." He paused for effect, and my stomach clenched. "But we only raised one smart kid." Laughter rippled through the room. Glasses clinked. My face burned as though I'd been slapped, the wine turning sour in my mouth. 20 years of academic achievement dissolved in 12 casual words. "Excuse me?" I managed, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. "Just need some air." Nobody noticed me slip away. The restaurant's side exit opened onto a quiet parking area, Chicago's spring air cool against my flushed skin. I pressed my palms against rough brick, forcing slow breaths. A car door slammed nearby. Dr. Greer? The voice was familiar, accented, warm with surprise. Allison? I turned, blinking back tears I refused to shed. Dr. Patel? My former advisor stood there in his signature tweed jacket, looking exactly as he had during my doctoral defense 5 years ago. His kind eyes narrowed behind his glasses. I thought that was you. I've been hoping to run into you, actually. You're a long way from Harvard, I managed, trying to smooth my voice into something professional. I saw your lecture last month at the Economic Policy Symposium, he said. That paper on predictive market behavior? Brilliant work. The department's been talking about nothing else. I wiped at my eyes, grateful for waterproof mascara. You saw that? Saw it? I insisted the whole department watch the recording. Dr. Patel's eyes crinkled with his signature half-smile. Your quantitative analysis of social influence on market volatility? Groundbreaking. The board couldn't stop talking about it. A car honked in the distance, and I caught a whiff of garlic from the restaurant's kitchen vent. The familiar scent reminded me of late nights in Dr. Patel's office, parsing through data sets while sharing takeout. He'd always believed in me, even when my theories seemed too unconventional. The timing of running into you is rather perfect, he continued, reaching into his leather briefcase. I have something for you. He pulled out a cream-colored envelope bearing Harvard's crimson seal. My throat tightened. Dr. Patel. The review board's decision was unanimous, he said, holding out the envelope. We want you at Harvard, Allison. Tenure track. Full benefits, research budget, the works. Your paper didn't just impress us. It showed us exactly where economic theory needs to go. I accepted the envelope with trembling fingers, the heavy paper suddenly feeling like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Harvard. The word echoed in my head like a bell tone. Have you ever had a moment where your whole world shifts, but everyone else just keeps walking by like nothing happened? I know it's a lot to process, Dr. Patel said gently, but we've been watching your work for years. This isn't just about one brilliant paper. It's about your consistent innovation, your ability to see patterns others miss. He paused, adjusting his glasses. The position starts in September, if you want it. If I want it? I nearly laughed. Instead, I straightened my spine, channeling years of practiced composure. I'd be honored, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Thank you for bringing this personally. The honor is ours, he replied. I'll have HR send the formal paperwork tomorrow. He checked his watch. I should get going. My flight's in 2 hours. But Allison? His expression grew serious. Some people miss the forest for the trees. Others, he gestured toward the restaurant, miss the Nobel potential in their own family. I tucked the envelope into my clutch, a plan already crystallizing in my mind. Would it be possible to keep this quiet for now? He nodded, understanding flickering across his face. Of course. Though you should know, the department plans to make quite an announcement when you arrive. Perfect, I thought. Out loud, I simply said, that works beautifully. Back inside, I slipped into my seat just as dessert arrived. Noah was holding court about his YouTube channel plans. It's all about financial literacy for the masses, he declared, arm around Celeste. I'm thinking of calling it Noah's Money Arc. Get it? Genius, Mom beamed. Richard, isn't that clever? Dad raised his glass again. To the next financial guru in the family. I smiled and raised my glass with everyone else, the Harvard letter burning a hole in my clutch. Let them have their moment, I thought. September would come soon enough. The next morning, as my plane climbed above Boston's coastline, I watched the sunrise paint the clouds in shades of victory. The woman across the aisle was reading the Wall Street Journal, its headlines about market trends suddenly feeling like old friends. I pulled out my phone and opened my calendar to September, my finger hovering over the first Monday. I thought about all the times I'd swallowed my achievements to make room for Noah's spotlight. All the times I'd edited my life down to footnotes in the family story. The memory of last night's toast still stung, but now it felt like fuel rather than fire. Dr. Patel was right. They'd missed the forest for the trees, but that was their mistake to live with, not mine to fix. I had a Harvard lecture hall waiting for me, and for once, I didn't feel any need to send a family update. I stepped into my new office, running my fingers along the polished oak desk that faced a wall of windows overlooking Harvard Yard. The September morning light filtered through centuries-old elms, casting dappled shadows across stacks of research papers and economic journals. Newton, my cat, had already claimed the window seat, his tail twitching as he watched students hurry across the brick pathways below. You know that feeling when you're exactly where you're meant to be? That's what those first few months at Harvard felt like. The familiar scent of old books and coffee reminded me of my graduate school days, but this time, I wasn't the quiet student in the back row. I was Dr. Greer, and this was my domain. I threw myself into research with an intensity that surprised even me. My latest paper on predictive market patterns caught the attention of the Wall Street Journal. The one after that landed me speaking engagements at Princeton and Yale. Students started filling my office hours, hungry for mentorship, and I found myself remembering Dr. Patel's steady guidance all those years ago. Dr. Greer? My graduate assistant, Sarah, appeared in the doorway one afternoon, tablet in hand. Your brother's latest video is trending on Twitter. I minimized the lecture notes on my screen and pulled up YouTube. There was Noah, perfectly coiffed in what looked like an expensive suit, standing in front of a sleek backdrop with floating graphics. Top 5 Secret Investment Strategies of CEOs, screamed the title. Want to build generational wealth? Noah's voice boomed through my speakers. Just follow my proprietary money system. M stands for maximize, O for optimize. I closed the tab, pressing my fingers to my temples. The worst part wasn't the oversimplified advice or the misused terminology. It was that people were actually listening. His subscriber count had hit 500,000, with comments calling him a financial genius and the next Warren Buffett. My phone buzzed. Mom had forwarded his video to our family group chat. Our Noah's changing lives. So proud of our financial expert. I set the phone face down on my desk, remembering how they'd dismissed my college graduation because Noah had a big football game that weekend. The memory still carried a sting, like pressing on an old bruise. But now, watching him build his house of cards, I felt something else stirring. Patience. Sarah cleared her throat. The dean's office confirmed they're announcing your appointment at next month's Economics Leadership Summit. They're expecting quite a turnout. I nodded, an idea taking shape. Sarah, could you get me the guest list template? I'd like to add a few names personally. That evening, as I worked late in my office, I crafted an email I'd been composing in my head for weeks. Simple, casual, just a daughter keeping her parents in the loop. Mom and Dad, I'm giving a little talk next month at Harvard. Nothing major, but I thought you might want to stop by if you're free. Noah's welcome too. Might be interesting for his channel. I hit send before adding any qualifiers or apologies. Let them assume it was a guest lecture or student presentation. Let them come expecting to humor their bookish daughter for an afternoon. My parents' response arrived predictably late. We'll try to make it. Noah's very busy with his speaking circuit, but we'll check his schedule. Mom. I opened my bottom drawer and pulled out a folder labeled Research Notes. Inside was a careful analysis of Noah's videos. Every misquoted statistic, every oversimplified theory, every dangerous piece of advice he'd given his followers. I'd been collecting them for months, building a case study on the dangers of unqualified financial influencers. The Economics Leadership Summit would feature a special panel on digital media and market manipulation. As the newest tenured professor, I'd been asked to present my latest research. They'd given me carte blanche on the topic. Newton jumped into my lap, purring as I scratched behind his ears. Through the window, I could see lights coming on across campus as evening settled over Cambridge. A teaching assistant hurried past, arms full of papers, reminding me of all those nights I'd studied while Noah was out celebrating his latest touchdown. Patience, I whispered to Newton, thinking of the summit invitation sitting in my parents' inbox. Sometimes the best revenge is letting people walk right into their own wake-up call. I waited 6 months before sending the invitation. 6 months of watching Noah's subscriber count climb while his content got increasingly reckless. 6 months of my parents forwarding his videos with proud commentary. 6 months of Celeste posting perfectly filtered photos of their power couple lifestyle. The formal Harvard invitation sat in my drafts folder for 3 days before I finally hit send. I deliberately stripped it down, made it sound almost apologetic. Dear Mom and Dad, Harvard's hosting a lecture series on modern finance, and I've been asked to contribute. It's nothing fancy, just an academic talk about ethics and social media. I know it's short notice, but I thought you might want to come. Thursday, 2 p.m., Anderson Hall. Love, Allison. I didn't mention I'd be the keynote speaker. Didn't mention the packed auditorium, the live stream, or the panel of industry leaders who'd specifically requested my participation. Let them think it was some dusty classroom discussion. The response came faster than usual, probably because I'd mentioned finance and social media in the same sentence. Sweetie, we'd love to come. Noah's actually doing really well with his channel. Over 1 million subscribers now. Would it be okay if he and Celeste joined? Maybe he could network a bit. Love, Mom. My hands didn't shake as I typed back a simple, of course. Newton watched from his perch on my desk as I clicked send, his tail twitching like he sensed something brewing. The next few weeks passed in a blur of preparation. My research team compiled data, cross-referenced sources, built ironclad arguments. Every night, I refined my presentation, making sure each point landed like a precision strike. The section on unqualified influencers, a case study in market manipulation, took particular attention. The night before the lecture, sleep was impossible. I paced my apartment, rehearsing key points, while Newton followed me from room to room. Around 3 a.m., I opened my laptop one last time, pulling up Noah's channel. His latest video thumbnail showed him grinning in front of a Ferrari, promising secret investment hacks of the ultra-wealthy. I clicked play, taking screenshots of specific timestamps where he cited non-existent studies or gave advice that violated SEC guidelines. Each image found its way into my presentation's final segment, the real cost of financial misinformation. Dawn crept over Cambridge as I made my last adjustments. The early morning light painted Harvard Yard in shades of gold and shadow, and I remembered all those nights I'd studied by lamplight while Noah's football trophies caught the sun in our parents' living room. The memory didn't sting anymore. It felt more like fuel. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Just checked into our hotel. Noah's so excited to see where you work. Celeste wants to do an Instagram story about supporting family. See you at 2. I set my phone down and took one last look at my presentation. The progression was perfect. Start broad with market ethics, narrow down to social media's impact, then zero in on specific case studies. Noah's channel would appear almost as an afterthought, just one example among many. But every economist and financial journalist in that audience would recognize the implications instantly. Time to let them watch me burn it all down, I whispered to Newton, who blinked at me slowly from his cushion. My voice sounded steady, calmer than I'd expected. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about consequences, about truth, finally rising to the surface. I changed into my charcoal suit, the one I'd bought myself after my first major publication, and slipped my laptop into its case. The walk across campus would help clear my head, give me time to center myself before the storm. As I locked my apartment door, my phone lit up with another text. This one from Noah. Can't wait to see my big sis in action. Maybe we can collab sometime. My followers would love some Harvard cred. I slipped the phone into my pocket without responding. In a few hours, he'd understand exactly what Harvard credentials meant, and what happened when you claimed expertise you hadn't earned. The morning air was crisp with early autumn, leaves just starting to turn. Students hurried past with coffee cups and laptops, some already heading toward Anderson Hall. They had no idea they were about to witness a carefully orchestrated demolition, years in the making. I heard Celeste's voice before I saw them, probably recording that Instagram story Mom mentioned. Perfect. The more documentation of this moment, the better. The auditorium buzzed with the kind of energy you only find before academic thunderstorms. I stood in the wings, adjusting my blazer's sleeves, watching faces I recognized from economic journals and financial networks filing in. The front row filled with department heads and visiting professors, their expressions expectant. A Reuters journalist settled into her seat, notebook ready. Remember when you were a kid and you'd practice your Academy Award speech in the bathroom mirror? This wasn't that kind of moment. This was quieter, deadlier. Like a sniper finding their mark through a scope. Dr. Patel appeared at my elbow. Packed house, he murmured. The Wall Street Journal called this morning. They're sending someone. I nodded, my attention caught by movement at the back doors. Mom entered first, wearing the same pearl necklace she'd worn to Noah's graduation. Dad followed, tugging at his tie like he always did when he felt out of place. Behind them came Noah, one hand guiding Celeste, who was absolutely filming everything on her phone. They chose seats in the third row, right where I'd known they would. Close enough to network, far enough back to make a graceful exit if things got boring. Noah sprawled with his usual confidence, while Celeste arranged herself for optimal recording angles. My parents glanced around, probably wondering why so many people had shown up for their quiet daughter's little talk. 2 minutes, the event coordinator whispered. I breathed in the familiar scent of old wood and leather that permeated Harvard's Anderson Hall. How many times had I sat in rooms like this being overlooked? The memory of textbook pages and late-night study sessions floated back. The scratch of my pen while Noah's football games echoed from the living room TV. Dr. Patel stepped onto the stage, approaching the podium with measured steps. The room hushed. Distinguished colleagues, honored guests, he began, his voice carrying to the rafters. Today we welcome Dr. Allison Greer, the youngest tenured professor in Harvard's Department of Economics. Mom's hand flew to her pearls. Dad's tie-tugging stopped mid-pull. Noah's sprawl stiffened into something less certain. Dr. Greer's groundbreaking work on market psychology and social influence has reshaped how we understand modern financial behavior, Dr. Patel continued. Her latest paper on digital misinformation in financial markets has been cited by the SEC in their upcoming regulatory proposals. Celeste's phone dipped. I watched her glance at Noah, whose smirk had vanished like morning frost in sunlight. I stepped onto the stage, my heels silent against the carpeted steps. The spotlight felt warm, familiar, like truth finally breaking through clouds. Applause rolled through the room, and I caught a glimpse of my mother's face. Pale, stunned, her carefully maintained composure cracking at the edges. Thank you, Dr. Patel, I said into the microphone, my voice steady as a surgeon's hand. And thank you all for coming today. We're going to discuss something vital to our economic future, the intersection of social media influence and market manipulation. The first slide appeared behind me, clean, professional, Harvard's shield in the corner. I clicked to the next one, watching my family from the corner of my eye. They sat frozen, like people watching an approaching storm. In recent years, I continued, we've seen an explosion of self-proclaimed financial experts on social media platforms. Many lack credentials, oversight, or basic economic understanding. Their advice, however confidently delivered, often amounts to dangerous oversimplification at best, and fraud at worst. Noah shifted in his seat. Celeste's phone had disappeared entirely now. I moved through my early points with precision, laying groundwork like a prosecutor building a case. Each slide added another brick to the wall of evidence. The audience leaned forward, pens scratching against notepads, keyboards clicking softly. Let's examine a specific case study, I said, right as Noah's YouTube channel banner filled the screen behind me. This account, with over 1 million subscribers, demonstrates classic patterns of unqualified financial advice. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. I caught Mom's hand returning to her pearls, Dad's fingers finding his tie. But I kept my focus on the broader audience, the economists, the journalists, the students. They were the ones who needed to understand the real damage of financial misinformation. Remember how I said this wasn't an Academy Award speech moment? I was wrong. It was better. It was every childhood dream of being seen, being heard, being proven right, but sharpened by years of patience into something that could cut through pretense like a razor through silk. I clicked to the next slide, and Noah's most recent video began to play. The video clip froze on Noah's confident smile, his practiced guru pose against his studio backdrop of fake books and motivational posters. My laser pointer circled the financial expert text beneath his name. Let's analyze the specific content creator's advice about cryptocurrency investments, I said, my voice carrying the same measured tone I'd use discussing any case study. Note the timestamp. This was posted 3 weeks ago. The clip played. Noah's voice filled the auditorium. Bitcoin's basically guaranteed to triple by December. I'm telling my followers now. Mortgage your house if you have to. This is the opportunity of a lifetime. I paused it. Now, let's examine the ethical implications of this statement. My pointer highlighted key phrases. First, no legitimate financial advisor would ever suggest mortgaging a home for cryptocurrency speculation. Second, observe the language. Guaranteed. Opportunity of a lifetime. Classic pressure tactics that exploit viewer FOMO or fear of missing out. A student's hand shot up. Professor Greer, isn't this illegal? An excellent question. I clicked to my next slide, SEC regulations in clear bullet points. While the lines between financial advice and entertainment content remain frustratingly blurry, there are specific guidelines about what constitutes responsible financial communication. The room was pin-drop quiet. In my peripheral vision, I saw Celeste's manicured hands gripping her designer purse. Noah had gone completely still, like a deer in headlights. My parents seemed to be shrinking in their seats. Remember those school presentations where your knees would shake and your voice would crack? This wasn't that. Years of lecture halls had given me something better than confidence: precision. Let's look at another example from last month. I advanced the slides. Here, our subject advises followers to invest their retirement savings in a specific tech startup. The clip played, showing Noah's enthusiastic endorsement of a company that, as my next slide revealed, had filed for bankruptcy 2 weeks later. Whispers rippled through the audience. A journalist in the fourth row was scribbling furiously. The pattern becomes clear, I continued, switching to a graph showing the correlation between his recommendations and market downturns. When influence outpaces expertise, the damage extends beyond individual followers. It creates systemic ripples that undermine market stability and public trust. Dr. Patel nodded from his seat, his expression grave. Several members of the economics faculty were taking photographs of my slides with their phones. This brings us to our central question. What responsibility do social media personalities bear when they position themselves as financial authorities? I advanced to a slide showing the legal definition of financial advice. The distinction between entertainment and professional guidance becomes dangerously blurred when unqualified individuals present complex financial concepts without proper context or risk disclosure. The heat of the spotlight felt like truth on my skin. Every word landed with the weight of research behind it. This wasn't revenge. It was education. The fact that it would devastate Noah's carefully constructed image was just peer review. In conclusion, I said, moving to my final data points, the rise of influencer-driven financial advice represents a critical ethical challenge for our field. When platforms prioritize engagement over accuracy, when charisma substitutes for credentials, we all pay the price. I clicked through my final slides. Statistics, regulatory frameworks, proposed solutions. Each point built upon the last like carefully placed stones in a wall that would ultimately box in every false claim Noah had ever made. Thank you for your attention, I said, closing my laptop with a soft click that seemed to echo in the silence. Are there any questions? Dozens of hands shot up, but before I could call on anyone, a commotion near the front caught everyone's attention. Noah was standing, his face flushed, tie askew. Celeste tugged at his sleeve, whispering something urgent. He shook her off and opened his mouth to speak. The room held its breath. My heart didn't even flutter. I'd anticipated this moment. I'd planned for it. Yes? I said, my voice carrying the same professional courtesy I'd extend to any audience member. You have a question about the ethics of financial misinformation? The next morning, I woke to my phone buzzing like an angry hornet's nest. You know that moment when you realize something's gone viral? This was it. Times 10. Some student had captured the exact moment when Noah stood up, spliced it with my methodical takedown of his claims, and set it to that "Oh no" song everyone uses. The clip had already hit 2 million views on TikTok. My lecture, my careful, researched, precisely aimed lecture, had become a social media bomb. I poured my morning coffee into my favorite mug, the one with Newton's laws printed on it, and settled into my reading nook. Outside, Cambridge was waking up, frost glinting on the sidewalks. 20 years ago, I'd sit in this same spot, watching dawn break while studying for exams. Now I was watching my brother's carefully constructed facade crumble in real time. My email pinged. It was from YouTube's Trust and Safety team, announcing they were reviewing Noah's channel for potential violations of financial advice guidelines. Another notification. His subscriber count had dropped by 50,000 overnight. The comments under his latest video were a battlefield of angry followers sharing stories of losses from following his advice. Professor Greer? My assistant knocked softly. These just arrived from the dean's office. She carried in an enormous arrangement of white orchids. The card read, "Brilliant work illuminating critical ethical issues in modern finance. The impact of your research continues to impress. Dean Richardson." I touched one delicate petal. Remember those participation trophies Noah used to collect? The ones that filled our parents' display cabinet while my academic awards gathered dust in a drawer? This wasn't that. This was earned. Noah posted a response video around noon. I watched it during lunch, picking at my salad as he tried to defend himself. Look, guys, this is just jealousy from the academic establishment. They don't understand modern finance. They're stuck in their ivory towers while we're out here in the real world. The comments scrolled past like a tide of digital karma. Dude got destroyed by his own sister with receipts. Harvard professor versus TikTok, bro. Who would win? Can't believe I almost took out a loan based on his advice. By 3 o'clock, YouTube had demonetized his channel. His tech company employer posted a brief statement. We are reviewing all content and associations to ensure alignment with our values. Celeste unfollowed him on Instagram. My phone lit up with a text from Dr. Patel. CNN wants to interview you about ethics in financial social media. Interested? I set my phone down and walked to my office window. Below, students crossed the quad, their backpacks heavy with books and dreams. How many of them had nearly fallen for get-rich-quick schemes like Noah's? How many had parents who dismissed their careful studies in favor of flashier pursuits? My parents hadn't called. No angry voicemails, no defensive emails, no flying to my defense like they always did for Noah. Just silence. The kind of silence that speaks volumes about realizing you backed the wrong horse. Around sunset, my department chair forwarded an email thread. The lecture recording was being added to Harvard's ethics curriculum. 3 other universities had already requested permission to use it in their economics programs. My research was no longer just papers and journals. It was becoming a teaching tool for the next generation. I opened my laptop to check Noah's channel one last time before heading home. His subscriber count had dropped another 100,000. His latest video had been removed for harmful financial advice. The comments section was closed. My phone buzzed again, a Google alert. Someone had dug up those bankruptcy filings I'd mentioned, connecting them to Noah's promotional posts. The SEC was reviewing recent social media financial advice practices. They didn't name names, but they didn't have to. As darkness fell over Harvard Yard, I gathered my things. On my desk, the orchids glowed in the last light of day. 24 hours ago, I'd stood on that stage, armed with nothing but facts and the quiet strength of someone who'd done the work. I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't needed to. I locked my office door, nodding to the cleaning staff as I left. In my bag, my phone kept buzzing with notifications, but I didn't check them. I already knew what they'd say. Noah's carefully constructed house of cards was falling, and all I'd done was point out it had been built on sand. Walking home through the cool evening air, I thought about influence and integrity, about flash versus substance. Noah had chased followers. I'd pursued truth. In the end, that made all the difference. 3 days passed in a blur of media requests and congratulatory emails. I'd settled into my morning routine, coffee, newspaper, Newton purring in my lap, when my phone lit up with an Instagram notification. There she was. Celeste, wrapped in a cream cashmere sweater, gazing thoughtfully into the distance from what looked like a luxury hotel balcony. The Manhattan skyline sparkled behind her like a crown of lights. Her caption stopped my scrolling thumb cold. Integrity matters. You know that moment when you witness someone choosing their dignity? It's like watching a butterfly emerge, quiet, determined, beautiful in its own way. Within minutes, fashion blogs were buzzing. Celeste had unfollowed Noah across every platform. Her PR team issued a statement about pursuing authentic partnerships. The ring was conspicuously absent from her manicured hand. I set my phone down, but it rang immediately. Mom. I let it go to voicemail, already knowing what was coming. Sure enough, her message dripped with that familiar passive-aggressive tone I'd grown up dodging. Allison, honey, I hope you're proud of yourself. Airing family matters so publicly. I raised you better than that. Noah is devastated. His career, his relationship. You've ruined everything he worked for. Call me back. We need to discuss how you're going to fix this. Fix this? The same way they'd fixed every mess Noah created growing up? Like the time he crashed Dad's car and they blamed the neighbor's son? Or when he plagiarized his college essay and they donated a new computer lab to smooth it over? I deleted the voicemail. My apartment felt suddenly small, memories pressing in from corners I thought I'd cleared. That familiar scent of Mom's disapproval, like lavender and judgment, seemed to seep through the phone. Newton headbutted my ankle, reminding me it was treat time. As I stood to feed him, my email pinged. From richard.greerogmail.com. Subject, need to talk. Time, 9:47 p.m. Allison, things aren't good. Had some tests done. Insurance lapsed last month. Company restructuring. Doctors talking about specialized treatments. Someone mentioned Harvard Medical has cutting-edge trials. I know I have no right to ask. But you always were the practical one. Maybe you know someone? Dad, I stared at those words. You always were the practical one. Not clever, not brilliant, not accomplished. Practical. Like being practical was a consolation prize for not being Noah. The cursor blinked, waiting for my response. Through my window, I could see the lights of Harvard Medical School glowing in the distance. I did know people. I had connections that could help. Connections I'd earned through years of quiet work while they were busy applauding Noah's latest schemes. My phone buzzed again. Mom calling. Again, her fourth attempt in 20 minutes. I silenced it, watching as another voicemail notification popped up. The preview showed just 3 words. How dare you? I closed my laptop without replying to Dad's email. Newton jumped into my lap, kneading my legs with his paws. He'd been a shelter cat, overlooked because he wasn't as flashy as the younger kittens. Now he was the most loyal companion I had. What do you think, Newton? I scratched behind his ears. Should we help the people who never helped us? My phone lit up with a text from Mom. Your father is sick. The least you could do is answer your phone. This is what family does. Family. Right. Like when they forgot my PhD defense because Noah had a networking event? Or when Dad said they'd only raised one smart kid and Mom laughed along? I picked up my phone, thumb hovering over the block button. But something stopped me. Not guilt, not obligation, but a strange sense of completion. They needed me now. The daughter they'd overlooked. The practical one. The one with real power and real influence. I set the phone down without blocking them. Let them sit with it for a while. Let them feel what it was like to wait for acknowledgement, to hope for help from someone who might not give it. Outside, the autumn wind rustled through Harvard Yard's trees. Somewhere across the city, Noah was probably crafting another defensive post. Somewhere in Manhattan, Celeste was reinventing herself without him. And somewhere in Chicago, my parents were finally learning what it felt like to be on the other side of silence. I read Dad's email 7 times, each pass revealing something new. The carefully chosen words, the strategic mention of Harvard, the way he'd signed it Dad instead of his usual Richard. Even in desperation, he was calculating. You know that hollow feeling that starts in your chest and spreads until your fingertips tingle? That's what hit me as I sat there. Newton purring in my lap, staring at those pixels that somehow carried the weight of decades. The practical one. The words echoed in my head like a bad joke. I took a sip of the Merlot I'd been saving for my 10-year celebration, letting the warmth settle into my bones. The same wine I'd wanted to share with them at my PhD defense, before they chose Noah's networking event instead. My apartment felt different tonight. The wall of economics textbooks I'd collected over the years seemed to watch me, their spines a testament to all the hours I'd spent proving myself while they were busy planning Noah's next celebration. The framed copy of my first published paper hung slightly crooked. I'd never quite gotten around to straightening it because, well, who was going to see it? Newton stretched and knocked my phone off the desk. As I bent to retrieve it, 3 more texts from Mom lit up the screen. Answer your phone. This is childish. Your father needs you? Childish? Like the time they forgot my birthday because Noah had a football game? Or when Dad couldn't make it to my graduate school graduation because Noah's startup was having a launch party? I opened Dad's email again. The cursor blinked accusingly in the reply field. Part of me wanted to hit delete, to give them a taste of the silence they'd perfected over the years. But another part, the part that still remembered the ache of being erased, of being background noise in my own family, that part wouldn't let me. Remember how sharp edges feel when you're 13 and sitting alone at your own birthday dinner because everyone else is at your brother's baseball tournament? How you learn to fold yourself smaller and smaller until you barely take up space at all. My wine glass was empty. I poured another. The Medical Research Division's email address was still in my contacts from a faculty mixer last month. Dr. Chen had mentioned they were always looking for trial participants. My fingers moved before I could second-guess myself. Forward. 2. Medical Research, Harvard @edu. Subject, FWD, need to talk. Note, flagged for potential review. Send, simple, clinical, professional, like I'd been trained to be. I closed my laptop with a soft click that felt louder than it should have. Newton jumped up onto my desk, knocking over a stack of student papers. I didn't bother picking them up. Instead, I walked to my window, the one with the view of Harvard Yard I'd earned through years of work they'd never noticed. The autumn wind rustled through leaves that were just starting to turn. Students hurried across paths, lost in their own stories. Somewhere in Chicago, my parents were probably still trying to call. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Noah. Way to kick a man when he's down, sis. I blocked his number. The wine was hitting now, warming my edges, softening the sharp corners of memory. I thought about all the times I'd wanted their approval, their attention, their love. How many nights had I stayed up rewriting papers, refining research, pushing myself toward a excellence they never bothered to see? When I woke the next morning, my head was surprisingly clear. Maybe it was the coffee, or maybe it was the crisp October air streaming through my cracked window. My laptop waited on the desk, closed but humming with possibility. One new email from medical.research@harvard.edu. Subject, FWD, need to talk, time, 8:17 am. Thank you for the referral, Dr. Greer. We'll reach out if he qualifies for any current trials. Short, professional, non-committal. I marked it as read and started grading papers. My students' latest analyses on market ethics needed attention, and I had a faculty meeting at 11. Life went on, just like it had all those years when I wasn't the center of theirs. Dad's email sat unanswered in my inbox. Let him wait. Let him wonder. Let him feel what it's like to hope someone notices you're drowning. I picked up my red pen and started marking papers. After all, I was the practical one. The October chill had settled into Cambridge, painting Harvard Yard in shades of amber and gold. 3 days had passed since the Medical Research Division's email, and I hadn't told Dad they'd be in touch. Let him check his spam folder obsessively for a while. I adjusted my laptop bag as I crossed the courtyard, breathing in air that smelled like possibility and old books. You know that feeling when you're exactly where you're meant to be? When all those years of being overlooked suddenly feel like they were just preparing you for something bigger? Professor Greer. A student waved from beneath a maple tree, her economics textbook balanced on her knee. Your paper on market ethics changed my whole thesis direction. I smiled and waved back, remembering how I used to dream of moments like this while sitting silent at family dinners. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd spent years trying to be heard at home, and now students quoted me in their papers. The autumn wind tugged at my blazer as I approached the social sciences building. Through the glass doors, I could see the newly installed bulletin board showcasing faculty achievements. There I was, right in the center. Dr. Allison Greer, shaping the future of economics. The photo they'd chosen caught me mid-lecture, gesturing passionately about market dynamics. My eyes in the picture held a confidence I'd always had but they'd never seen. Remember how Mom used to say I was too intense when I tried explaining my research? How Dad would cut me off to ask Noah about his latest business idea? I checked my watch, 40 minutes until the lecture. Just enough time to review my slides one last time. The lecture hall was empty when I arrived, that particular kind of quiet that comes before something important. I pulled out my laptop and clicked through the presentation. Graphs, data sets, theoretical frameworks, all building to that final slide I'd added last night. The photo was perfect. Mom and Dad beaming at Noah's graduation, their golden child centered in the frame. Beside it, the headline from last week's academic journal. Harvard's youngest tenured economics professor, Dr. Allison Greer revolutionizes market theory. My hands didn't shake as I adjusted the projector settings. They hadn't shaken in years, not since I learned that steady hands were just another form of armor. Students began filtering in, their chatter echoing off the high ceiling. A few faculty members took seats in the back row, notebooks ready. Dr. Patel slipped in through the side door and gave me a knowing nod. He'd been the first person to see past my quiet exterior, to recognize the fire underneath. Dr. Greer? My teaching assistant approached with a stack of handouts. The Wall Street Journal reporter is here. Where would you like her to sit? I gestured to the reserved section in the front. Perfect timing. Could you make sure the recording equipment is ready? The lecture hall filled quickly, fuller than usual. Word had gotten around after my last presentation, the one that had exposed Noah's financial misinformation. Funny how truth has a way of drawing a crowd. I straightened my blazer and checked my reflection in the darkened computer screen. The woman looking back at me wasn't the same one who'd sat silently through decades of family dinners. She wasn't the girl who'd accepted being called bookish, like it was an insult. The lights dimmed slightly, and the projector hummed to life. My opening slide cast a soft glow across the eager faces before me. The microphone felt cool against my fingertips as I adjusted it. A late arrival slipped into the back row. One of Noah's former subscribers, I noticed. He'd been vocal on Twitter about my previous lecture's impact. Now he had a notebook open, pen poised. The clock struck 2. Conversations hushed. Laptops opened. The familiar energy of academic anticipation filled the room, that electric moment before ideas take flight. I smiled, calm and steady, as Dr. Patel stood to make the introduction. The final slide waited patiently in my presentation, a quiet truth bomb set to detonate with perfect timing. All those years of being the other child had taught me something valuable. Sometimes the best revenge isn't loud at all. It's surgical. It's patient. And sometimes it wears a Harvard professor's blazer and carries a laser pointer. Dr. Patel cleared his throat. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Allison Greer. The lecture flowed like water, smooth, natural, unstoppable. I'd given variations of this talk dozens of times, but today felt different. Each point landed with precision. Each graph told its story, and the audience leaned forward, caught in the current of economic theory made accessible. You know that feeling when you're absolutely in your element? When everything you've learned and lived just clicks into place? That was me, moving across the stage, fielding questions, drawing connections that made students' eyes light up with understanding. My mother shifted uncomfortably in her front row seat, probably wondering when I'd learn to command a room like this. Dad kept checking his phone, an old habit from when he used to film Noah's football games. Funny how some things never change. And this brings us to our final consideration, I said, my voice carrying clearly through the packed hall. The intersection of theoretical frameworks and real-world applications. I clicked the remote. The screen transitioned. There it was. The photo filled half the screen, Mom and Dad at Noah's MBA graduation, their faces glowing with that particular pride they'd reserved exclusively for him. Dad's arm was around Noah's shoulders, Mom clutching her designer handbag, both of them beaming like they'd just won the lottery. The image was crystal clear, recent enough that Mom was wearing the same pearl necklace she had on today. Beside it, in elegant typography, the headline that had run in last week's academic journal: Harvard's youngest tenured economics professor, Dr. Allison Greer revolutionizes market theory. The contrast was poetry. A gasp rippled through the audience. Someone's pen clattered to the floor. In my peripheral vision, I saw Dr. Patel's satisfied smile. He'd always said timing was everything in academia. I kept my voice steady, professional. This juxtaposition illustrates our theme perfectly: the gap between perception and reality in modern economic discourse. Mom's hand flew to her throat, fingers touching those pearls. Dad's phone finally lowered. Their expressions shifted from confusion to shock to something that looked almost like fear. Fear of what they'd missed, perhaps, or fear of who I'd become while they weren't watching. From the third row, a student whispered loudly to her neighbor, "Wait, is that her family?" The whisper caught fire, spreading through the hall like a match dropped in dry grass. I saw phones discreetly lifting, capturing the moment. Tomorrow, this would probably hit academic Twitter, maybe even make it to Noah's remaining followers. I didn't linger on the slide. Instead, I advanced to my closing summary, delivering my final points with the same measured confidence I'd maintained throughout. The discussion that followed was vibrant, insightful, exactly what you'd expect from Harvard's brightest. When the applause finally faded, I gathered my materials with unhurried precision. Students crowded forward with questions, creating a natural barrier between me and the front row where my parents sat, still stunned into silence. "Dr. Greer, that was incredible," one of my graduate students gushed. "The way you connected behavioral economics to real-world power dynamics?" "Thank you," I said, smiling genuinely. "We can discuss it more during Thursday's seminar." I moved through the crowd, accepting compliments and deflecting follow-up questions with practiced ease. My heels clicked against the hardwood as I approached the exit, not sparing a glance for the front row. Let them sit there. Let them wonder how many other moments they'd missed while focusing their spotlight elsewhere. A reporter from the Wall Street Journal touched my elbow. "Dr. Greer, do you have a moment to discuss your next paper?" "My assistant will set up an interview," I replied, stepping past her. The hall's double doors stood open, autumn light spilling across the threshold. Beyond them lay Harvard Yard, my office, my carefully built life. I walked through without looking back, my steps measured and sure. Behind me, I heard another student whisper, "Wow, that's her family?" Yes, I thought, but they weren't my audience anymore. They never really had been. I passed through the doorway, leaving them exactly where they'd always left me, watching from a distance, finally seeing what had been there all along. Camera flashes burst like lightning through the autumn afternoon. I blinked, momentarily dazzled, as I stepped out of Sever Hall into the crisp October air. The marble Harvard crest above the doorway caught the late sunlight, casting long shadows across the weathered stone steps. Dr. Greer, your comments on influencer finance accountability? Dr. Greer, any response to your brother's channel being demonetized? Professor, what about the tech firm's suspension? The questions came rapid fire from the cluster of reporters gathered near the faculty entrance. I adjusted my coat, charcoal wool, classic cut, a far cry from the baggy sweaters I'd hidden in during my own college years. Remember those? The ones Mom used to call library camouflage with that little disappointed sigh? My phone buzzed. Another email from Dad, probably. Third one today. The Medical Studies Review Board would contact him directly if he qualified. That's how protocol worked. He'd figure it out eventually. Dr. Greer! A young woman with a WSJ press badge stepped forward. Your lecture series has sparked a national conversation about financial ethics in social media. Did you anticipate this level of impact? I smiled, polite but measured. Academic integrity has always been my focus. The implications simply followed their natural course. Natural course. Like water finding its path downhill. Like Noah's subscriber count dropping by the thousands. Like Celeste's Instagram story from this morning, a photo of packed boxes and an empty ring finger, captioned only with a peace sign emoji. Professor Greer, wait. This voice was different, eager, young. A student pushed through the press crowd, clutching what I recognized as last month's economic review. The cover featured my latest paper on market psychology and social influence. The girl's eyes were bright, earnest. Would you sign this? Your work on behavioral economics changed how I see everything. Changed how she sees everything. Funny how clarity works both ways, isn't it? I took the journal, uncapped my pen. Behind us, through Sever Hall's tall windows, I could still see the lecture screen. That final slide lingered there, a digital ghost. The graduation photo beside my Harvard headline. Mom and Dad's frozen smiles next to proof of everything they'd missed. Who should I make it out to? I asked the student. Sarah, she beamed. I'm hoping to apply to your graduate seminar next semester. I signed with the same precise strokes I'd used on my tenure acceptance papers. To Sarah, question everything, find your truth. Her fingers trembled slightly as she took the journal back. Thank you. I saw the video of your ethics lecture, the one with your brother's channel. That must have been necessary, I finished simply. More camera flashes. The marble crest above us caught the light again, Harvard's Veritas motto gleaming. Truth. The word carried new weight now, didn't it? Like the weight of Noah's company badge being confiscated pending their ethics review. Like the weight of Mom's unanswered texts. Like the weight of Dad's medical records sitting in a review board's queue. A senior faculty member nodded as he passed, portfolio tucked under his arm. Brilliant lecture, Allison. The dean's quite pleased with the attention we're getting. I returned his nod, remembering all the professors who'd never noticed me in undergrad. The ones who'd mixed up my name with other quiet students. Funny how authority looks different from this side. Through the window, I could still see that damning slide. The contrast between that golden child graduation photo and my professional headline seemed sharper now, more deliberate. In the lecture hall, a janitor was starting to pack up the AV equipment. Soon that image would fade to black, but its impact? That would echo. Dr. Greer? Another reporter stepped forward. Your brother's recent video response claimed family bias affected your academic critique. Any comment? I thought of Noah's desperate attempt at damage control. His shaky selfie video, recorded in his Tesla, throwing around terms like cancel culture and sibling rivalry. The comment section had not been kind. The data speaks for itself, I replied, smooth as river stones. Numbers don't play favorites. Unlike some people. The student, Sarah, clutched her signed journal closer. Will you be publishing a follow-up paper on social media financial advice? Perhaps, I smiled. I've found keeping receipts leads to fascinating research opportunities. Behind us, the lecture hall finally went dark, but the last image remained burned in my mind. That split screen of contrast. The family that never saw me coming, next to the headline that proved I'd been there all along. Turns out they had two smart kids. Only one kept receipts. I believe stories like this find us for a reason. If this one touched you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day, and tomorrow's might be the one your heart's been waiting for.